Welcome back to the Thumbi podcast. I'm Thumbi, and today we're diving into episode 2 of our series on Atomic Habits by James Clear. In our last episode, we introduced the concept of atomic habits and outlined the structure of the book. Today, we're going to explore the power of atomic habits and why small changes can make a big difference. So, let's start with the science behind habits. Habits are essentially behaviors that become automatic through repetition. They are formed in the brain by a process called chunking, which allows the brain to convert a sequence of actions into an automatic routine. This process is governed by the habit loop, which consists of 3 components: cue, routine, and reward. Later, James Clear expanded this into 4 stages: cue, craving, response, and reward. The first part of the habit loop is the cue. This is a trigger that tells your brain to initiate a behavior. It could be anything from a specific time of day to a particular emotion. Next, there's the craving, which is the motivational force behind every habit. It's the desire to change your internal state. Then comes the response, which is the actual behavior you perform. Finally, there's the reward, the positive outcome that tells your brain that this loop is worth remembering for the future. Understanding this loop is crucial because it helps us see how habits form and why they are so powerful. When a behavior is repeated enough times, it becomes automatic and hardwired into your brain. This is why habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. Just as money multiplies through compound interest, the effects of your habits multiply as you repeat them. Let's talk about the power of small changes. James Clear uses the analogy of an ice cube melting. Imagine an ice cube sitting on a table in a room that's 25 degrees Fahrenheit. If the temperature increases to 26, 27, or even 31 degrees, nothing happens. But when the temperature reaches 32 degrees, the ice begins to melt. This is a perfect illustration of the power of small changes. Often, the results of our efforts are not immediately visible, but they accumulate over time until a critical threshold is reached and the change becomes apparent. Another key idea is the concept of 1% improvement. Clear argues that if you get 1% better each day, you'll end up 37 times better after 1 year. This principle can be applied to any area of your life, whether it's fitness, productivity, relationships, or personal development. Small habits may seem insignificant on a day-to-day basis, but over time, they can lead to remarkable results. One of the most compelling examples James Clear shares is the story of the British cycling team. For years, British cyclists were mediocre at best. But when Dave Brailsford became the team's performance director in 2003, he implemented a strategy he called the aggregation of marginal gains. This involved making small improvements in every aspect of cycling, from the bike seats to the cyclist's diet. The result: British cyclists dominated the sport, winning multiple Tour de France titles and Olympic medals. This story highlights an essential truth. Success is not the result of a single, monumental change, but rather the accumulation of many small changes. By focusing on continuous, small improvements, you can achieve extraordinary results. So, how can you apply these principles to your life? Start by identifying a small habit you want to build or a tiny change you want to make. Remember, it should be something so small that it feels easy to do consistently. Once this habit becomes automatic, you can build on it by adding another small change. For example, if you want to start exercising, begin with a tiny habit like doing 1 push-up a day. As this becomes a routine, you can gradually increase the number of push-ups or add other exercises. The key is to focus on making the habit so easy that you can't say no. In our next episode, we'll dive into the first law of behavior change: make it obvious. We'll discuss how to identify and clarify the cues that trigger your habits. I hope you found today's episode insightful and motivating. If you have any questions or stories about how small habits have made a big difference in your life, feel free to share them with me on social media or via email. Your feedback and stories are what make this podcast truly valuable. Thank you for joining me on this journey of habit formation and self-improvement. Remember, small habits can lead to big changes. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It helps more people discover the show and join us on this path to better habits. Until next time, keep focusing on those small, consistent changes. This is Thumbi, signing off from the Thumbi podcast.
Subscribe for more content.